So from Errol's champ to Errol's rooting interest. Number 2, Duke against number 7, Michigan State. The third time they've met in the tournament last 7 years.
Duke is my team. I want them to win the whole thing. I grew up a Duke fan, Bobby Hurley fan. I want to see them win the whole thing. I don't think they're a very good rebounding team, and they have been horrible defensively in the second half of the season.
This game, I feel that it's too many points. When you look at Sparty, they show up in big games. They beat Purdue. They've also beat Wisconsin this year. They have played Wisconsin really tough. They played Illinois really tough. And you got to respect the coaching. I don't see Duke losing it, but I just think that the points are too many. I think that MSU is going to be up early, probably like within the first 5 minutes of the game. That is probably going to give you Duke fans some live betting opportunity. So when you see MSU go up by 3 or 4 in the first 5 minutes, go back in, take the points in the first half, do the right thing, get paid, cash out in the first half. I think Duke's going to win, but I don't see them covering that spread against Sparty, who shows up in huge games.
Listen to some of these numbers. Last 3 games, Duke shot 50% from the field. They've scored 78 plus in 6 of 7. Now, what a game Davidson played. That was just a great basketball. There have been a half dozen that were incredible basketball games, but Michigan State is currently 4-1 in their last 5, but they're 5-0 against the spread. The over, though, is 6-1. They've scored 69 plus in 7 straight. I'm looking for a play here. I'm going with the over.
If Duke knocks off Michigan State, I think they have the easiest way to the Elite Eight. Very dangerous if they can knock off Michigan State. But you have 2 of the greatest coaches in NCAA history, and they faced each other plenty of times. This is Coach K's last hurrah. I expect this to be a fun game to watch. I think it'll be a very close game. I got Duke winning this game. I think it'll be close. I could see this game going overtime.
Excellent point, Errol, because what Wes said is so crucial, not just for this game, for all these games tomorrow, all these games next week. If you like somebody and that point spread is a little high, don't be afraid to jump on that 6.5 if you like Duke. But they get behind and it gets to 2.5 or 3.5. When you're given 2.5 and when you're given 6.5 at the end of a basketball game, it's a totally different game.
There's a bankroll management side of it, too. If you go into this thing, and let's just say you'd like to bet $1. Everybody's got $1. Mm-hmm. Go into it with 50 cents, knowing that you may enter again for another 25 cents. You may enter again, for a second time at 25 cents if it shifts up or down. And so you've kind of point spread cost averaged yourself into your full dollar bet rather than the full dollar locking yourself in. There is a strategy there, and you could cover yourself. And now at that point, you probably don't need to hit all 3. You can hit 2 out of the 3 and find yourself cashing. If you find yourself winning 10% or 15%, that is a wild year in your 401k. And if you can look at the sports betting bankroll management the same way, it is a win.
Just if that 1 quarter hits, and you were totally wrong right on the game, but that 1 quarter hits, now you got 50 cents. So you got half of your bankroll back from that game, and you were wrong.
All right, next game is number 11, Iowa State, number 3, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin's a great shooting team. I think Wisconsin could be very dangerous in this tournament. I expect Wisconsin to get into the Sweet 16. Way better team than Iowa State. The only way Iowa State stays in this game is if they get to the line, they out-duel them in the paint. Wisconsin, they have always been a big team in the paint, but they're not always been a good rebounding team. I think Iowa's a better rebounding team, so I think the only way Iowa has a chance to win this game is they're going to have to out-rebound Wisconsin. I don't know if they can. I think Wisconsin wins. What is the line right now for Wisconsin?
4.5.
4.5. I would bet them on the over.
Did you guys watch that game when they barely won? They won by 7, given 7.5.
Yes.
The crowd, it's in Wisconsin. The crowd was the loudest crowd I've ever heard at a game. And I went to a lot of March Madness games in my career. It was amazingly loud. And that is something that you can't not underestimate how valuable that's got to be 2 or 3 points. I think Wisconsin bounces back.
There's about 5 logos in college sports that are my kryptonite. I don't bet on them. I don't bet against them. I lose every time I try and touch the game. And the Wisconsin Badgers are one of those logos that I am wrong. I lose. I may as well hand you fellas dollars to just put them up in flames and just burn them. Iowa State's really been struggling to score points in the last 5 games, and Wisconsin hasn't really scored that many either. I mean, these games have not been crazy scoreboard lighting games. So my play on this one, I think that these past few games that Iowa State's put up where they haven't been scoring points has lowered the value of this over-under. The over-under right now is 125.5. So I'm going to take that strategy I was talking about. I'm going to take my dollar, and I'm going to go in for 50 cents, and I'm going to say over 125.5. If that drops at any point to say 123, I'm going to go back in for 25 cents. And if it drops again, I'm going to go back in for 25 cents. And so I'm looking at overs in this game. I think that there's going to be more points than the 125. We're looking at 63-63 in order to cash this, and I like that to happen.
That's the lowest under of the 8 games. Wisconsin's going to put up some points because they struggled.
All right, number 11, Notre Dame. Number 3, Texas Tech.
Notre Dame's one of those teams. Wes just mentioned it. I have 2, Notre Dame and Michigan. 2 teams that I do not touch. Notre Dame is the first 4, right? They dominated Alabama and then went under, but before that, they were 8-0-1 over. Somebody had asked me about Notre Dame game, the first game, and I told them, the one that won overtime. I said, they're going to score some points. They've scored 74 points in 10 straight games. Texas Tech whacked Montana State, but before that, they were 1-5 against the spread, but this is a no-play game for me.
I didn't expect Notre Dame to be where they are. Play the play-in game to get into this position, and they played so well. I expect Notre Dame to keep playing as well as they are. I wouldn't bet on this game. I think Notre Dame is going to surprise everybody and knock off Texas Tech now.
Texas Tech is one that's pretty close to home for me just because I'm in Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes, and anytime Texas Tech comes to town, it seems to be this massive Mahomes event. 8 points is a lot. I will have no interest in this game other than the play to the listeners. When I'm unsure about a game, I just take the points. So I'm on the other side of this. I have trouble laying 8 points on Texas Tech, who's struggled in the last 10 to win by more than 7 or 8.
All right, number 10, Miami. Number 2, Auburn.
That's going to be a fun game to watch. Miami looked really, really good in the first round. Some people have picked Auburn to win the whole thing. I think this game's going to be fun to watch. Both teams are very good offensively. Auburn's, I think, a little bit better defensively. Auburn, they have that it factor in this tournament. I think Auburn could absolutely surprise a lot of people and get themselves in the Elite Eight. You know, they make the right moves in these games. It's all about coaching, especially in this tournament. So I got Auburn in this game. What is the line right now?
7.5.
7.5. I wouldn't bet on that line, but I think the game will be close, but I think Auburn wins.
This is my strongest opinion of the weekend. I really like Miami. I like Miami to win outright. I like Miami to cover the points. Miami is a team that has played the gauntlet of the ACC, played teams like Duke and North Carolina and played them tough. I like Miami in this spot. 7.5 is too many for sure.
Yes.
I'm going into it with 90% of my investment. I will have a personal stake in this one. 90% of my investment is going to be taking the 7.5 points. The other 10% is on the money line. Auburn played in the SEC this year. They did not show up when the timing mattered the most. Vividly remember a game against Alabama where Auburn struggled to show up for a good majority of that game. I do not have any trust in Auburn in big spots. I think they've been berated all year. I am going to have to send Auburn Nation an apology letter if I'm wrong here, but I'm saying in this game it's all about the U.
Auburn, if they don't score 62, which that's one of the games that Wes referenced. They've scored 62, not once, not twice, 3 times. Otherwise, they score 75 or more. My play in this game is the Auburn team total over. As long as Miami scores more than 76 points, we should all win.
Number 6, Texas against number 3, Purdue.
I love Purdue in this game. Purdue, they're big, they're strong, they can shoot, they can rebound, they can do everything, and they're one of the biggest teams right now in the tournament. I like Purdue very, very much so. Texas, a lot of people like Texas, too, going throughout this tournament. I didn't see Texas getting out of the second round, especially matching up against Purdue. Give me Purdue. What is the line on this?
3.5.
Absolutely bet on the over on that one.
Well, here's the problem with Purdue. Before the Yale game, they were 1-8-1 against the spreads. But Texas beat Virginia Tech. Before that, they were 1-7 against the spread. I'm not touching this game.
Well, and it's all about opportunity. I do struggle with this game because it's 3.5. Texas beat Kansas. I lived through that. I have family in Kansas City that they were sick that day. And then the second time around, they dragged Kansas into overtime. They played Baylor tough. I mean, so I'm kind of looking at comp opponents here, and 3.5, it's just an odd number in this scenario. I do think Purdue wins. I think if they cover this 3.5, it may be late in the fourth. I think that live action is the right approach to this game. Texas kind of doesn't score points, but doesn't really let you score. Like they held Kansas to 70 points. Not a lot of teams can even say that. So it's hard for me to side against a team that's that gritty. This game is a total walk away. I think your opportunities are going to come in live betting.
Last game is number 9 TCU, number 1 Arizona.
I got Arizona in this game. I expect Arizona to win and win big in this game. Arizona is one of the best offensive teams in the nation. They can shoot a lot of threes, and they're a big, strong team. So give me Arizona. What is the line on this?
9.5.
I think it'll be a lot closer than that. But Arizona wins this game.
that line is a lot lower than it would have been if they dominated the other night, but they went 4 minutes. They were covering the first half. Then they went 5 minutes without scoring. It was their longest drought probably of the season, but they're definitely a great team. TCU hasn't scored 70 points. Their last 6 games have gone 6-0 under. They haven't scored 70 points. How are you going to beat Arizona if you're not scoring 70 points? Arizona, every single loss they have against the spread in the last month, and they haven't had too many. They've had 3 games. They didn't cover the spread. This next game is followed by a W. I'm giving the 9.5.
TCU's averaging 68 points a game. If you can't score 70, you have no shot against Zona, who's averaging 84, 85 points a game. Even when they're not shooting a high percentage, they're still putting up 80 points a game. I think Zona learned some lessons from last game. They're going to be often and early. I think Zona may be winning by the teens, possibly into the 20s. Zona is going to open this one up, and we're going to be talking about Zona after this game.
I think it's going to be a lot closer than you guys think. I really do.
That's exactly why they have a guy there behind the window taking money. Yeah. He'll take both of your money. He'll take the $1 from Wes, actually the $1.10. He'll take the $1.10 from Arrow. He'll go out back, smoke a cigarette for 3 hours, come back in and pay one of you $1, keep the dime, and that's why Vegas has all those.
I didn't think they were going to beat Seton Hall, and they didn't just beat them; they killed them. Okay, so
that's why we're catching only 9.5 on this game. Seton Hall should have shown up. TCU had no business beating Seton Hall, and because they beat him in that fashion, that's the only reason that this spread is 9.5 and not 16 and a hook right now. This spread should be 16, 14. It should not be as low as 9.5.
Remember, this is your last game. You lose in your conference tournament, you could still get into a dance. Right. But if you lose in the dance, you go home. So you have to say to yourself, is that last game something I need to throw out or something I pay attention to? You?
What do you have for hockey?
Here's where I'm at with hockey. I mentioned last week we were looking at fringe teams, teams that are in or out or have a reason to show up. And so this is where I'm at. I've officially thrown away the Vegas Golden Knights. They're too banged up on their roster. I'm looking at these fringe teams. I'm looking at the Pens. I'm looking at the Rangers. I'm looking at the Bruins. I'm looking at the Caps. Those are the interesting teams to me. The Bruins and Rangers, more so than most. You guys know I've followed the Canes pretty close, but the game that I'm looking at for Sunday is the Rangers versus the Canes. This checks a lot of boxes for me within system plays. So we got the Rangers playing on Saturday. Then they play again on Sunday. I love games with the teams going into 2 games in a row. The last time these 2 teams played, there were 9 goals scored. It was 6-3. The Canes are coming off of a loss. I know there's a lot of Rangers fans listening, but I believe that the Canes are going to show up in this game coming off of a loss, catching the Rangers on the second game 2 days in a row, that the Canes are going to repeat their performance from a few weeks back. I don't know that it's 6-3. But I think that the Canes are going to show up. They're going to win. They're going to win outright.
One last thing before we go, Wes, refresh us on the play tonight that's going on, the Gonzaga.
Memphis under 73.5. I went there because Memphis in their losses averages 66 points, and they have only gone over 70 4 out of those 10 times in their losing efforts, while Gonzaga has only allowed 70 points 10 times out of their 32 games. So I am Memphis team total under 73 and a hook.
So the weekend crunch, guys, you take that money and then you bet it again tomorrow.